Fantastic. Okay, how's it going? Glad everybody made it here through the rain. So let's see, we're going to talk about Rally today for part one, and then for part two we're going to talk about some Agile metrics and how to interpret them. First part's going to be sort of a little bit of show and tell. We'll go through what is sort of a day in the life of an Agile project. Okay. And then the second portion, when we're talking about metrics and how to interpret them, things like this. This is a burn-up graph. Right over there, it's a velocity chart. So we'll talk about how to interpret these things and to get insight into how your teams are actually performing. So, with that being said, let me introduce myself. My name's Jim. I work with Rally. I'm a solutions architect. And what that means is I work on combining Agile processes with the Rally products when we create solutions for organizations. It's really just a fancy title. I'm a product specialist and an Agile expert. So, okay, with that being said, let me give you a little background on who I am and how I got here. I started my career in Silicon Valley, back in the heyday of the internet, working as a software engineer. And got exposed to early Agile techniques out there before there was really even something called Agile, right? It was just how it worked. After the dot-com meltdown, which was not my fault, thank you, moved east and landed in DC and got involved as a federal contractor, right? Got my PMP, got an ITIL certification, so now I'm sort of part of the whole DC scene, government contracting scene. But I always thought about my work sort of through this Agile lens, right? Because it was how I thought. Well, people in DC, they like seeing letters after your last name, right? So then I got one Agile certification, another, a third, a fourth. So I sort of collect letters at this point. It's kind of fun. But so that brings me here. I work for Rally now, and my job, like I said, is to go and help customers implement their Agile dreams. Okay, so let's take a look. Let me get a sense for you guys. Who here is part of the federal contracting market or a government employee? 2. Okay. Who here is more on the commercial side? 2. Not sure what else there is, commercial or government. Some people aren't answering, but that's all right. Let's see. Who here would say that they are rather familiar with how Agile works? 2, 3. Who here? 4. Who here is not very familiar with how Agile works? Okay, so we're kind of split. That's fine. That's fine, not a big deal. So, part of what I'll do today is talk a little bit about some Agile theory, right? And we'll talk about how to do a day in the life inside Rally. And yeah, let's get started. So, all right, so when you're doing Scrum, Scrum is the most popular form of doing Agile. And you can mix in elements like Lean, you can mix in elements of Kanban, but Scrum, the basics, are sort of the most popular aspect of how to do Agile. And the first thing that we want to do with, well, actually, hold on, let me take a step back. Let me think how I want to present this. We'll keep going. The first thing that we want to do when we stop and think about Scrum is work through the ceremonies. Okay? And the first one is backlog grooming. The second one is sprint planning. The third one is your daily stand-up. After that, you have some things that are sort of more about the team's interaction, like your sprint demo and your sprint retrospective. Right? Rally's focus is generally on the first 3. Your sprint planning, your backlog grooming, and your daily stand-up. Before we jump into this, let me stop and give you a quick background on the levers that you can operate within Rally, right? So we can get a sense for how it works. So, in traditional project management, we have the triple constraint, right? Scope, time, and resources. And in Agile, you don't necessarily throw that out the window. We have that as well. Okay? It's just thought of a little differently. So let me go through and explain a few things. So let's talk about scope first. So let's look at what we call in Rally the portfolio hierarchy. Okay? And let me get this arranged correctly so that we can start off. Okay, so portfolio hierarchy. This is basically what you would consider to be your work breakdown structure, right? It starts at the very highest level and breaks down to the very lowest level, tasks. Highest level here is something we call a strategic theme. I'm not sure why they came up with that name, but that's what we call it. Naming convention isn't necessarily really that important. It's what it does, it's important for you. Strategic themes are things that generally would span a multi-year effort. So this is something that executives come up with, right? They go with their spouses, they go off to a beach and they think about, well, what should we do over the next couple of years? And they come up with these ideas. And so in this scenario, let me make this a little bigger here. There we go, now we can see it. Everybody see that? All right. You guys in the back? You all right? All right. So in this scenario here, we can see that one of the strategic themes is to create a best-in-class platform. Okay? And when the executives come up with these ideas, at some point they need to work with some other people, maybe like directors, okay? Someone else within the organization, to break down the work a little bit further. And so in this scenario, this is where we get into the work breakdown, right? We have, let's see, hold on. Somebody has screwed with my demo data. I borrow Fannie Mae's. Screwed with my demo data. All right, here we go. So, revamp online presence. Create best-in-class platform. So let's break this down a little bit. So revamping the online presence breaks down into something that we call initiatives. These are things that you probably come up with during annual planning. Things that have roughly about a year duration, right? And this is where the directors work with the executives to say, all right, so you want to do this idea. This is what we would have to do to get this put together. Then at some point, the directors, they work with the managers and they come up with the next level down, right? Because this is a work breakdown structure. And they're going to come up with features. Features are things that you're going to put into your release. Things that you're actually going to ship when you deploy your product. Eventually, the features, once they actually go into the release, the features need to be broken down into user stories. So we have user stories. And of course, when you're doing your sprint planning, the user stories get broken down into tasks. Now what I'm trying to show you here is that we have this strong hierarchy between all of our system objects. And this makes for a really nice roll-up of information and a really nice breakdown of work, right? And so what we call it is connecting strategy with execution. Very powerful. And what it does is it lets us get really two of the most important questions that a manager or a director or an executive is going to ask. What percent done are we? And are we on track? Right? And because we have planned start dates and planned end dates, because we can tell how much of the work has actually been done, we can calculate that in real time. Makes executives pretty happy. All right, so that's one lever dealing with scope. The next lever is related to time. Okay? And there's a couple of different ways to think about time. The smallest time box is an iteration, or a sprint. In Rally, we consider those to be synonymous. right? And so what is an iteration? What is a sprint? It's your 2-week time box. That you're trying to get all of this work done in this little period of time, top to bottom, get it done, offer it up to the product owner so that they give the thumbs up. Yes, I like that. Now the next level is a release. When I was a software engineer, a release was something that you put on CD or you put on floppy disk and you shipped out to people. It was delivered. It was a major event, and it was a little hard to go back and fix things. Right? You remember that kind of work, right? When you shipped something, you actually had to send it to manufacturing. They made copies. You had gold CDs, and once you put that thing out the door, it was done. So you had to make sure it was right. And you had to make sure that it had the features in it that you needed. Because the next opportunity to do this might be 2 years down the road. Well, nowadays we have things like the cloud. We have internet applications that we deploy from central IT. We have the ability to put things out a lot faster. And so the modern approach with Agile has been to stop thinking about a release as some sort of a major event that happened once every 2 years, and start thinking of it as just a larger time box than a sprint or an iteration. And what Rally coaches is sprints for 2 weeks, releases for a quarter, or 90 days. So you can fit about 6 iterations, 6 sprints into a release. What's kind of nice about the time boxes is they provide windows for deployment. And so, if you were on a merry-go-round, and you're coming around and you see your parents and you wave, you go back around and you see your parents and you wave again, right? There's that window of opportunity to see them. And the same thing happens with releases. Okay? It's a window of opportunity to get stuff out to the general public, to get stuff out to your users, to get stuff out to get feedback on, so that you can incorporate it back into what you're going to do next. Because we're dealing with windows, the work is going to take as long as the work takes. But when you have a window of opportunity to get things out, it inherently forces people to prioritize. Right? It inherently pushes you to prioritize. And because we don't have that long 2-year cycle before you can actually do this stuff again, before you can actually get stuff out to the users, if it doesn't fit in the next window, you're going to come back around the merry-go-round again, and you're going to say hello to your parents again. That make sense? All right. The third aspect of time is called milestones. Hey, come on now. Third aspect here is called milestones. There we go. One of the aspects of Agile has been this mantra of develop on cadence, deliver on demand. Okay? And the cadence is small iterations and a big release. Small iterations and then a release. Small iterations and then a release. But we still need something to march to. Right? This is where we're starting to think about what are the deployments going to contain if we're not necessarily worried about deploying right at the edge of the time box. And so sometimes you might want to think about, are we going to do a versioned release? Are we going to have something ready for a trade show? And so you can begin to queue up your features that you know really matter for this big event. Okay, so that's time structure. One more structure here, and this is for people and resources. And in this scenario, this demo scenario that I have, we have a scenario of an online store. Okay? And what we're trying to do here is to model the structure of an organization's teams. It's an organizational hierarchy. It's a team hierarchy. And so you might think of this demo scenario to be like something like Amazon.com.